Good afternoon. Thank you for making time on your Sunday afternoon to join us for this briefing. As Hurricane Beryl approaches the Windward Islands, currently as a Category 4 hurricane, the government of Dominica continues to monitor the progress and assess potential impact on Dominica. This afternoon, you will hear from the Senior Met Officer Acting, Itoma James, Local Government Commissioner Glenroy Toussaint, Chief of Police Acting, Davidson Valerie, and the Minister for National Security, Honorable Rayburn Blackmore. Let's begin with Senior Met Officer Acting, Itoma James.
The tropical storm, once tropical storm Beryl is now a major hurricane, the Category 4. Beryl is located about 495 miles east-southeast of Dominica and has maximum sustained winds of up to 130 miles per hour, making it a major hurricane at Category 4. Hurricane force winds extend outwards up to 30 that Beryl is passing a bit far from Dominica to the south, about 200 miles south of Dominica, and the wind fields extend outward up to 115 miles. In the abundance of caution, though, we are keeping our tropical storm watch in place because any slight deviation to this current track that the hurricane is on, could mean that we are in position to have sustained winds at tropical storm force. Currently, the track suggests that the sustained winds that we may experience may be in patches. In areas of higher elevations, there is a chance that they could have some tropical storm force winds. And with that information, we would think that it is prudent to keep our tropical storm watch in place. Also expected with Beryl, because of the size and strength of this, is a rapid deterioration in sea conditions. We expect the seafarers to make sure that all their preparations are in place, regardless of a direct impact for Dominica. The strength of this storm, of this hurricane, could really mean that the seas are in very bad conditions. We expect waves of up to 4.5 meters or 15 feet. And this deterioration we expect to continue well into Tuesday morning. The storm is moving relatively fast at about 21 miles per hour. This would mean that, well, it's a bit of a good news for us. It mean that it will be out of the area relatively fast, and the experiences that we may get could be relatively short-lived. Some of the good news with that, what that means is that the rainfall that we expect of 2 to 4 inches could possibly happen in a short span of time, 14 hours. And what that means is that we could have some flash flooding. So communities prone to landslides and falling rocks, these individuals are asked to pay particular attention. Special attention should be placed for people in areas in the eastern coast and in higher elevations. Places where we have low-lying bridges and river crossings, people should pay attention so that they know just what is going on in their area. As we have been preaching for the entirety of the year, preparation is key, so you should know your vulnerabilities and keep those things in mind. Again, I would just like to reiterate that the tropical storm watch remains in place, and please stay aware that any major deviation in the storm could mean that we would be placed under a tropical storm warning. So stay up to date with all of the information that is being prepared and presented to you by the Dominica Meteorological Service and other relevant authorities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. James. As you heard from Itoma, the Tropical storm watch remains in effect for Dominica, and it is prudent that we remain informed as the storm tracks towards the Windward Islands. The Shelter Committee of the National Emergency Planning Organization plays a critical role ahead of any storm. And this afternoon, we have with us the local government commissioner, Mr. Glenroy Toussaint, to provide an update on the preparations being made in that regard.
Thank you very much, Diana. Let me recognize the Honorable Minister for National Security, Honorable Raymond Blackmore. Of course, you've heard from the Met Office, and they have clearly indicated that Dominica may experience occasional period of heavy rainfall, importantly, which may pose a challenge to residents of the East, particularly the communities of Kudup, Pidisufriye, and Sansouve. We must, of course, note importantly of the challenges in those communities. One, they're prone to landslides, most recent being November 6, 2022, and that impacted the communities heavily. The community, traversing for the community, you have to go through rivers and bridges and ravines and things of that nature. Very importantly as well is that there are no designated emergency shelters for those communities. The residents of those communities have to go to the regional shelter in Casibus that's prepared for them because of the vulnerability of those areas. And it is out of an abundance of caution that as of 2 p.m., we have opened the emergency shelter in Casibus, and I must repeat, to solely accommodate the residents of Petit Soufriere, Kudup, and Sansouve. The thing is, we are given sufficient time because, of course, when we have the elements having to cross bridges and rivers and ravines, it sort of really creates a little problem for the communities. So we are given sufficient time. And we, of course, recognize the vulnerability of those communities. And so we are opening the regional shelter in Casibus as of 2 for the residents of those communities that I have mentioned. Of course, to aid in the process, the health team in Casibus, along with the fire and ambulance service, they have all activated the plans for the area to assist in terms of coordination, transportation of persons to the shelters. And of course, whenever health issues occur, they will be available so to assist in that regard. We are encouraging, importantly, the residents of Kudo, Petit Soufriere, and Sansouve to immediately move to the shelters. We have already activated the disaster management committees in those communities who will sort of coordinate in terms of the transportation of persons to the emergency shelter in Casibus. Very, very important. Let me just inform the general public that we'll be giving regular updates on the shelter situation for the rest of Dominica. We're encouraging you to please stay tuned to your radio station. Please listen to the weather reports. We'll be giving updates throughout the course of the day as far as the shelter situation is concerned in Dominica. Please remember, folks, to stay safe, continue your preparations. We're in the hurricane season. And ultimately, I must tell you that we will survive. Thank you, and may God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Toussaint, for your update. And as you heard, the emergency shelter located in Casibus will be open at 2 p.m. today to cater for residents of Good Hope, Petit Soufriere, and Sansouve. As you know, these areas are prone to landslides. So again, out of an abundance of caution, this measure is being taken. Security is another major consideration during the approach of any weather event. And so we have with us the Chief of Police Acting, Davidson Valerie, who will now address us.
Let me recognize the presence of the Honorable Minister of National Security, other members of the committee. At this moment, the Commonwealth of Dominica Police Force stands ready. We are in a state of readiness to respond to any possible impact from the passage of this weather condition. All police officers have been placed on alert and will report to their respective stations and sections at 6 p.m. today. Our facilities have been checked and equipment are ready. The general public is asked to pay attention to the national and official advisories from the ODM and Met Office, in fact, Met Office. We have been placed on alert, and so the police will be prepared to respond to any eventualities if the weather condition so dictates. We will do this to the best of our ability. The business owners are asked or are reminded to ensure that they take the necessary measures to secure their business places if the situation so dictates. The police, as I said, are ready, and we are in full gear. We are prepared to respond to the best of our ability if the situation, the weather situation, does deteriorate to that extent and affects Dominica. Thank you.
All thanks to the acting Chief of Police, Davidson Valerie. We also have with us this afternoon the Minister with responsibility for national security, Honorable Arabian Blackmore. The government of Dominica has held 2 meetings to assess the weather situation, 2 meetings since Saturday. We just came out of a meeting about half an hour ago. And so the Honorable Minister will now bring us up to date from his vantage point.
Thank you very much, Madam Press Secretary. Let me also recognize in our mix the Acting Chief of Police, Mr. Davidson Valerie, and also the Local Government Commissioner, Mr. Glenwell Toussaint. And I want to recognize also Mr. Itomo James, who has not been sleeping along with Mr. Fiscal Pascal for the past couple of days. I want to take this opportunity also to highly commend all those of you who have been involved in the planning process to ensure that we are collectively ready to face the possible eventuality of this very serious hurricane. And we, notwithstanding the good news so far in terms of the models we have been looking at, we also have to take into consideration and pray for sisters and brothers further down south. And they were there for us during Maria, and let's hope for the best and continue to pray. I also want to also give the public the assurance that your Prime Minister has been fully briefed, and of course I've been chairing the meetings that we have been having so far to ensure that from a national standpoint that proper decision can be taken in good time. I also wanted to speak to the whole issue, and also I want to recognize so far the level of diligence and commitment that have been demonstrated by all the sub chairs that we have, the subcommittees, and the various chairpersons that chairing those committees. They have been very much proactive so far and responsive, and that is the way we have to actually face any possible disaster that may impact us. As you know, a watch is that it may impact the country. But insofar as it relates, because I know a number of people want to hear about a number of things. Number one, as it relates to work tomorrow. And insofar as it relates to work tomorrow, unless the circumstances change, the models change, and the scientific advice that has been given to the government so far and the Prime Minister has changed, work remains tomorrow. Let me re-emphasize for the purpose of emphasis, and work remains tomorrow, and that is so based on the advice, and you know we're dealing with a science, and we have to be advised insofar as the science is concerned. So yes, we will keep you informed if there's were to be any changes to that, but insofar as it relates to work, yes, there is work. I also want to call on all of us, notwithstanding the fact that your government over the years, learning of course from the experience of Maria, and we have done everything possible to close the gaps that existed previous to Dominica being destroyed by Maria. We are, in terms of our response infrastructure, it is much improved. But when we're talking about readiness, we have to take into consideration our individual responsibilities. And what are we doing within the home setting to ensure that we have our own plans within our homes? What are we doing from a community standpoint to ensure that some of the hazards, public hazards that we see on a daily basis, they need to clean our drains or ravines or, overhanging branches, etc. All these things are potential hazard. And so we still have time while we're under the watch to address those basic issues. And the fact is, even if you're not in a vulnerable area like Peter Sufri and San Surveyor that Mr. Granwell just made reference to just now, I think that we have a responsibility also to ensure that if we can get ourselves to safer ground, that we do that and don't wait for the last minute when a warning is issued. So we have enough time not to go on to empty the supermarkets, but to make sure we have the basic supplies that we need to have, or water, stuff like that, and to ensure that if circumstances were to change, that we're all ready from a national standpoint. When you're going to a shelter, there are some basic things that you have to have. And so we'll continue to pray, but you cannot pray and do nothing. You cannot only pray and know that there's a drain next to your home or next to your neighbor's home or an elderly person, etc., that needs to be cleaned. So those are some of the issues that I think that we need to address now as we're still under the watch to ensure that we are proactive in addressing those potential hazards. If they're not addressed, it could actually cause or impact to be more devastating. So we'll continue to keep you informed as time progresses. And as you have heard from the press secretary, we have been having regular meetings. We'll be meeting again later. And of course, the Prime Minister is at every of those meetings, chairing those meetings, very alert, and to ensure that we put the safety of our people first. And that is what we'll continue to do as a government and as a people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. For many of you, the major takeaway from the Minister's comments would be that there is work tomorrow, as of now. However, we continue to monitor the situation and we will update you accordingly. A tropical storm watch remains in effect for Dominica. We continue to urge vigilance. Please monitor updates and information from the Met Office and the ODM. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. To have a good rest of your day. Good afternoon.